Hello, Governor. Well, bugger my face if we're not living through a Transformer resurgence of absolute golden age proportions. We're basically buried in awesome toys and well-regarded comics and hype video games. And from somewhere in the maelstrom of wish fulfillment came a sexy new tank-type Megatron, which just happens to be a major fun fetish of mine. So if you'll allow me an indulgence, I'd like to take a minute to blab at the camera for a bit about all the mega tanks I can muster. Lock and load, lovelies, we doing this. So yes, in the post-G1 hellscape of the early 90s, somebody somewhere decided it was just too dang convenient for the young'uns to get the stinky mitts on non-real guns that look like non-real guns, which is probably fair enough, but it didn't have to put them Hasbros in a bit of a tight spot, seeing as one of their principal cast was an eerily lifelike P-38 Pimpatron. So they apparently thought about it for 1 second before blurting out the most bluntly obvious but awesomely badass alternative imaginable. Dorks and Dorkalinas, this is Generation 2 Megatron. Yes indeed, this was the first de-weaponized do-over Mega Man who busted onto the scene with something to prove, seeing as the Optimus he was up against was still basically the same old guy who'd been trucking unchanged for 8 years solid. So he's definitely bringing his alpha game, but I get the sense he might have overdone it a bit with like a flab to movement ratio second only to friggin' Grandus. Check out this monumental monoboob mantelpiece, shamelessly solid cast midsection, and the legs of friggin' Shin City save for the contractually obligated token feety flaps. You can maybe stand to tone it down a bit and all on the maximum 90s neon camo colour job, with this visual blitzkrieg of secondary colours and daft little Dayglow tramp stamps. Supposability is an absolute myth, but old Mega Megs comes from an era when action figures were content to rely on daft electro gimmicks rather than the ability to actually physically do anything. Fuck, it's just rife with noise bombs. I mean, even the paltry arm posing triggers a daft pew-pew sound effect. But the best one's definitely here under his marvellous Megatron-y mug. Check it out, like a cubist caricature with like the daft inflated helmet and some heavy eyebrow action. So you just give it a tap and it's all... make a ton of cack. Anyway, what about this absurdly immense centerpiece shoulder cannon? I mean, it totally dominates the already ludicrous shoulder platform. Like it sticks all the way out the front and the back, and it's got like zero clearance from his poor old noodle. Once again, it's got some desperately unnecessary sound effects on the go. Like it does a click-click loading sound, which is totally drowned out by the mechanism actually making the sound while you're already doing it. And then you get a fuzzy little boom under the insanely loud snap it already makes. So for bits and bobs, he's packing half a dozen of these missiles, which you can stack up in there if you've managed to keep hold of more than one after 23 years. Tasty little handheld pistol there, which does seem a bit redundant, and he's got like a green floodlight thing somewhere. And that's about it for the robot mode. It's just a giant, unrepentant, minimum imagination sellout slab of plastic with all the subtlety of a leopard print bazooka that fires Jeremy Clarkson. This has only got like 6 moving parts to his name. You could definitely transform it blindfolded in like 1 second. I almost didn't speed it up. What I love about this is the robot's blatantly so almost a tank already. So like, there's no surprises, but it still feels good. And what do you reckon of this blistering bulk beast? It's precisely as much of a slap as the robot mode is, but horizontal this time. It's maybe a smidge too neon and flancy to call brutal and overqualified for beefy. It's just a big stupid tank with a turret that kind of tilts a bit and doesn't turn at all, and it's gonna bust up in your place, yell naked on a sack, run over all your mates, and then it's gonna kill you. It is a tank, and that is it. But check this out, he also came with a tiny baby version of himself. I just love this thing, it's 1000% adorbs. But I can't figure out where the batteries go, which is a shame, because I could use a digital watch. Look, I basically worship this toy. This is like one of my favourite Transformers. But I almost like the idea of the figure more than the actual figure. Like, I like big beefy bots, I like Decepticons, I like when the front of the vehicle becomes the robot chest, and honestly I like neon green and purple. But in reality, he just kind of stands there. But when it comes to this era, that ain't such a bad thing. He just stands there with the best of them. Magnificent. A couple of years down the line then, it was time for a tidy up, so the Hasbros gave the rehash button an almighty smash and presented to the world the recycled radiance of Hero Megatron. Although being the lowly Eurotrash peasant that I am, what I actually hold here goes by the imposingly obtuse title of Archforce. Yes indeed, the Eurobots apparently decided they had quite enough Megatrons for the time being, thank you very much, and decided to send in his pal. It's clearly just Megatron though. I mean, the only discernible difference is this peculiarly vacant chest sticker here, which looks curiously featureless without his counterpart's vulgar ego-strokey slogan, Americans. So we're talking mid-90s now, and by this point TFs were down in the doldrums of what do we got, as they rapidly ran out of hacky gimmicks left to exploit. I mean, by this point they'd already burned through electro voices, slideshows, water guns, colour changing, and those deaf little helicopter pull cord things that always end up in next door's hedgerow. So of course this guy exists and services some daft air pump death darts thing. Damn. But it's bewildering to me they even thought they'd have to shoehorn that in, because in his own right, this Fabulous Freak's a pretty amazing engineering advancement. I mean, it'd be pretty easy to just write it off as a cheap-out copy-paste downscaling of the old Megasonic Teenage Warhead over here, but he just isn't one. He's a whole new fella bringing a completely fresh take on the old G2 Decepticons with his own design and fresh sculpting and some sick articulation. Articulation. Yes, indeed, Archforce brings a bit of the old laser rod dance revolution with like proper hips and knees and bidirectional elbows and a waist swivel even. Pretty slick effort on the looks with the black and purple giving him a fierce bad guy vibe, and I love the eerily skin-toned face with its unsettling blood gaze. He's just a sound little sucker that honestly wouldn't look too out of place with some of today's contenders. Megatron rules indeed. For all his new robot mode bravado, he's still broadly the same thing, so the transformation is about the same. I mean, it does at least seem to snap in a little tighter, but it's basically business as before. It's just a largely inert little chunk tank, but it does go some way toward getting me on board with the gimmick. I mean, check it out, the pump and the pipe almost look cool, like they're part of some future science-y hyper phaser. So he may not be the full 15 stories of awesome his old man was, but Archforce has made some excellent life decisions and I couldn't be prouder of him. Go on, my son. Two toys in the bag, then an old tank Megs took a back seat for a decade or so, occasionally dropping the odd repaint here and there, along with a few Cybertronian space boxes and a famously fiendish stint as the alien H-tank freak machine in Armada. But that, I feel, is a story for another day. The next time we see a garish, real-world, rad robo-tank was when Classics kicked off on its righteous revisionist rampage, which, 9 years deep, I sense will outlive us all. And as the original nostalgia-centric TF toyline, it was, of course, absolutely oversaturated with Optimi and Megatron. One of which was this little Legends class doozy from the grand old days of Universe 2008. Yes, indeed, this baby badass is everything that was fabulous about G2 Megs, with its unflinching forthrightness and striking chunkitude. And equally, what was so dumb about it, seeing as this one carries off better posability at a fifth of the size. He's bringing some balls for a miniature menace. He's somehow got presence beyond his tiny trousers. And I don't know if it's the permanent power stance or the actual head-mounted cannon, but I feel like he's going to give me a bollocking if I even look at him. God, I hope he didn't hear that. Check out this little chancer still churning out the old arms and legs round rah from 16 years previous. Tank mode's a bit irresistible though. It's showcasing a serious detail quota, and it's such a weirdly huge downward jump in scale that I still kind of get a novelty kick out of it. Colours are looking somewhat hushed on account of Universe 08's vague attempt at mild realism, but they are there, which to my mind makes this guy a perfect fun-size servant of G2 join us. But before this guy, and after it, and about the same time as well, came probably the most prolific deluxe class tank former that just didn't know when to stop. Classics Megatron. Not that one. Cropped up repeatedly alongside a deeply mediocre Optimus in Versus Pack after Versus Pack over the course of about 5 years. And like, it also came out on its own, and there was a white one, and then there was the sexy one. This is Transformers United Tank Megatron. Yes, indeed, this Japanese jerk-off was one of my first truly decadent Transformer purchases, because I didn't need it. I mean, people generally don't need toys, but like, I already had one in green, and I liked it, and I was happy with it. But even so, even though it was a straightforward palette swap and a £25 import rip-off, I was still just like, having that. So yeah, this is about the 19th regurgitation of the slightly less camp of the two Classics Tron men. And he's one of those ones that I really like, even though he's not necessarily that good. I mean, for the most part, he's a pretty solid effort, with like your standard Classics traditional but updated styles, like this rib for her pleasure, pectoral precipice, and the slightly space-age tread legs. Head's looking pretty goddamn ultimate as well, with the indestructible iron hat and the spooky purple flesh face looking less like a robot and more like light-piped Robert Zidar. But the thing that really holds back this hapless homeboy from being a truly Megatron is his majorly questionable arms. I mean, the shoulders look neat enough with some interesting Decepticonic angles, and like the left one's almost okay if not for the cop-out moulded in hand, but the right one's just a nightmare. Oh, nightmare. So he's rocking the tank cannon on his arm there, sort of almost potentially like the G1 Classic look, but nowhere near as cool. And I mean, he has to go without a hand for the sake of this garbage flaily gimmick, which at best looks silly and at worst comes off. Also, for some reason, this little Isengard pineapple on the end here can come off so it can conveniently vanish behind your desk. Why? But I suppose you can ignore it if you try hard enough, and at least they tried to put a new spin on it. Other than that, it's hard not to love this lumpy little grump, especially in this sweet toxo-vipery catsuit. And judging by the cheeky disregarded Megatron rules signage on the box art, turns out this just might be the generation's Archforce you didn't realise you wanted. That's what I do. Transformation's sort of standardly surprise-free, save for the old swiveling head platter. And once again, here I sit holding a literal plastic tank, and once again I couldn't be happier about that. Check out this bouncy little brawler. It's sort of a lovably clumsy, rough and tumble little rat bag, looking a bunch more B-movie than some of his forefathers with this sci-fi-tastic kaiju bothering mazer barrel. So you can't really say this guy's top of the line, but I just have the squishiest soft spot for him, because it's one of the things that got me back into collecting, and it's based on one of my favourite things ever. And the paint job just panders directly to my eyeballs. Shocking electric blue, hot orange highlights, and 2 different purples. Forget about it. So regular as clockwork, Tech Megatron took a swift commercial break after 2 whole new toys, passing the gauntlet to his Cybertronian self and a sickly, slick-looking GDO repaint of the Bludge, before powering back onto the scene this year with the leader-class comeback king that is Combiner Wars Megatron. Not that he actually combines with anything, he's clearly just inherited the name because that's what's happening right now, but I'm sure you'll have noticed he's taken a fairly drastic style departure from your standard discoed up G2 Tankatron. Yes indeed, this sassy senor brings a loving spoonful of original series elegance, flaunting the old-timey silver and red shell suit and the fearsome flat-chested sleekitude, bridging the gap between the revered but impractical 84 gun guy and the mighty 92 tank-type beefbot, resulting in a satisfying amalgam Megatron. I really hope this means Megatron's just always going to be a tank from now on. I mean, I think we all get why he can't be a gun anymore. Like, this bypasses the need to do the mass displacement mental gymnastics without having to entrust itself to the actual least trustworthy person ever. So yeah, this mean Mega Mother's packing the harshest G1 Meg's head for miles around, with a severely sullen sulk and might piping. Bit annoying that this kibble chunk, the only kibble chunk, gets in the way a bit, although you can French door it out of the way. Torso's maybe a pinch static, but it is at least looking pretty paying, with the classic G1 pec panels and belly buttons all pleasingly sculpted into a single tectonic chest plate. Arms are densely hench up here with some serious steak knife shoulders and some cheeky echoes of the G1 guy's red zones. I mean, you've got the extreme right angle wizard sleeve and the standard wrist swivel. I don't know how I feel about these weirdly exposed and unabashedly basic roll plug looking shoulders. I mean, they just look so cheap and slapdash, and they're slightly too far down to give them a solid swivel without looking dark. And like, there is a reason they had to be there, but it just bothers me. Like, even though the old guys had at least stayed level with his shoulder line, sort it out. Feet are some pure ugly stompers down there with a bit of a forward lean thanks to these robo shin tendons, and he at least finally does something sensible with the treads. Check him out embedded in the back there. That's way better than having them stapled onto the side. So he can bust out a split or a high kick no sweat, but the knees can only go to about 4 o'clock and the ratchets are just merciless. I guess you'll be alright as long as you don't mind him moving exclusively in 20-degree increments. So in keeping with this guy's G1-centric sensibilities, the old shoulder cannon's migrated down to his arm for some wrist-mounted wreckage. Also, you can totally extendurate it out for this immense snipe zooka, and as if there were ever any doubt, you can totally flip it around for the full-on G1 Fusion cannon. I don't know, maybe I'm just so used to these big clunky lumber bods that suddenly skipping to slender Tyranitank just doesn't sit right. Or maybe it's because we've been so spoiled by the movie-era leader bots that anything short of mechanical miracles feels like a raw deal now. There's still a big part of me that expects lights and sounds and insane parts counts and hour-long conversions for my 50 quid. But, I mean, he definitely fills a hole, and there's something endlessly appealing about a nice big Megatron. Too easy. Well, that thing I said a minute ago about the movie leaders is still true. Can't remember the last time I could be bothered to transform one. But this just feels like too much the other way. But it's all academic anyway when the tank mode's this jaw-droppingly eye-popping. Yes, indeed, as we said, this thing eschews the time-honoured toxic jungle camo and instead goes for sheer shameless shine power with a lavish lashing of luxurious armour detail. For a semi-realistic non-OTT Tankticon, this is probably the most impressive thing I've ever seen. Gets a bit panicky up the back, but by and large this is one snog-worthy sex pot. Turret looks pretty pulverising up there and it packs a full 360 thanks to the internal turntable, but considering it's the reason you had to sacrifice good shoulders, it does not feel a bit ropey. I mean, the mechanism's so thunky it feels for all the world like it's going to shake itself into oblivion, but at least they did it. How many other otherwise okay trans tanks have been let down by frozen turret syndrome? I can think of at least 3. Anyways, hand cannon splits up into these twin turret toppers, and it looks like there's combining potential after all, thanks to a veritable pox of minicon ports. Also, while we're talking extras, he comes with this cheeky sticker sheet, so you can make him an Autobot if you want, or you can whack on those naffo curly chest hair details with an awkward white background. So that's your 2015 Megatron, and I just don't know how I feel about it. It feels like a toy from 1995, but without the genuine charm of being a toy from 1995. This is meant to be the G1-style leader-class ultimate Decepticon badass. This is one my inner 9-year-old's been aching for, and I really want to be blown away by it. But it's just not quite there. Sometimes it takes a disappointment to realise what something means to you, and I guess over the years this has been a bit of a roller coaster. So from glorious to impressive to charmingly almost crap to frustratingly almost not crap, it's been a wild old ride. Thanks, Tanks. Thanks.
Be sure to subscribe for more Thew's Awesome Transformers reviews. Limited appeal, keeping it real.